Hi, I'm Yelena, and welcome to Confetti Conversations, a new type of interview series that mixes conversation with confetti to celebrate the beautiful mess of being human. I'm your host and the creator of the Confetti Project, where for the past 10 years, I've been on a mission to bring play back into adulthood through photography, workshops, and now this series. Today's guest is Kayla Kleinman, a content creator that's known for her cozy, relatable content about books, self-care, and living life in your 30s. In today's episode, we talk about how to unlearn productivity as self-worth, how to reconnect to that expressive inner child inside all of us, and how to find joy, not as something to chase, but something to return to. This is for you if you've ever struggled with rest, equate your value with doing, or need permission to slow down and just be. Welcome to your new favorite playdate. Okay, before anything, I like to start with kind of the beginning. I really think through working with confetti for like 10 years now that the inner child has the answers. And so what was younger you like? Like what was little Kayla like?
My mind instantly goes to being 6 years old, and my older brother was in like a kids production of the musical Joseph. And I took it upon myself to memorize the entire cast recording, and I would act it out with my little like Playmobil characters. And like that to me is little Kayla of like theatrical and memorizing show tunes and performing show tunes with my brother and just like wanting to sing and dance and do all of that stuff.
Would you force your family or friends to like watch you perform? Like you would put on these like shows? Because I did that when I was a little kid too.
I feel like we forced our parents in the way that I grew up about an hour north of the city, and we would go into the city a lot to see theater, and we would sing through entire cast recordings of Broadway shows. So I feel like my parents had to be a captive audience to my brother and I, like singing through entire musicals the entire way to the city, the entire way home.
So it sounds like you were very like expressive.
Yes, definitely.
So what happened as you got older that kind of disconnected you from yourself? Like your power, that expressiveness, like that authentic version of you?
I think like so many people, the society and other people's opinions start to play in, that you start to feel weird or self-conscious, or you start to feel your light get dimmed essentially, and you start to make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller, I find. And it's interesting to think of being so young and just like not even knowing to be self-conscious of it. And then as time goes on, people say things, people's actions, you're like, wait, I'm gonna be quieter, I'm gonna be in a smaller box so that I can't get that reaction out of them. So I think as time goes on, it's that like thinking about what other people are saying and changing yourself accordingly.
I'm in my mid-30s and realizing the damage of basically being like judged, right? And this notion, and I think most of us that are living, you know, the path of like authenticity have been told that we're too much at one point or another, right? You're too this, you're too that. And it's taken me this long to realize that it's actually not about me. It's more about how normal it is in society for people not to be comfortable to hold space for themselves. Yeah. And then it's just easier to kind of ridicule and mock people that do that, because it kind of it's a distraction from yourself, right? Yeah. It's like if you're, you know, being your full self and you're, you know, whatever it is, it can be a threat to someone because it reminds them of like all those parts of themselves that they have made dormant or they don't love or they have like shame around, right? Yeah. That was something I navigated. Was that something as you got older as well?
I think about with each passing year, it's like shedding a layer of that like societal pressure off of me, and like you're younger, you don't have any of it, and then as you get older, everything builds on, and now I feel like I'm like slowly taking all of that away and like removing all of that and just all the stuff that gets glommed on over the years. Glommed. I don't even know if it's not even a real word. Glommed on. I love it. Yeah, I feel like it's a process, and I feel like that has been so much of my 30s in particular, is slowly getting back to that little girl who was performing musicals in the living room. I mean, I think so much is like getting in touch with that core you and kind of ignoring those outside voices, or at the very least knowing which ones to listen to. To me, it's knowing who are the correct people to take that feedback from. And I think for so much of my life, it was taking it from people that weren't serving me, as opposed to now taking it from people that illuminate me, that remind me who I am and can see something in me that maybe I don't even see in myself sometimes. So yeah, it's that like self-reflectiveness and kind of just going back to like, okay, but what do I want? Not what do I think I'm supposed to want, not what should I want, but like, what do I want?
You talk really openly about your anxiety. You talk very openly about, just whatever you're going through, right? Whether it's like, autoimmune stuff, digestive stuff, like being a bibliophile, liking more of that soft, slow lifestyle, right? Has that really helped kind of heal you in terms of creating a space where it's kind of like chosen family and people that have been told you're too much or you're different or you're weird or misunderstood, where they can kind of feel seen within that?
I definitely think so. It's kind of this weird, like, sometimes in creating the content, it forces me to live it out as well in talking about my struggles of really taking my identity and being a hard worker or wherever that thing lies, and like talking about it and what I'm trying to do. I think one, it like holds me more accountable, and it also just like forces me to embody more of who that person is that I want to do. But then also like, it makes me feel less alone. I think so much of my content and why it resonates with people is because it makes them feel less alone. It makes them realize other people are experiencing this, and it's not just them, and that a lot of these feelings are very universal, but we just don't always talk about them in an open forum so honestly.
Tell me a little bit more about kind of destigmatizing, like being alone in solitude.
I do think that reading helped me with that flip from loneliness to alone, and just now it kind of is that feeling of, oh, anytime I am alone in my apartment on a Friday night, like how amazing, I can just read or do whatever I want. I mean, I just went on a vacation on my own that I spent the whole week reading and did very little else, and to me, like, that was absolute bliss. And I think for some people, they're like, weren't you bored? And I'm like, no, I was just reading a lot and very content with that. So I think having those, maybe it's reading, but whatever that solo activity is, whether it's drawing or crafting, playing cozy video games or something, like what is that thing that you love to do on your own, and what are those things that you don't need other people to give you that permission to do, that you're just excited to do in your own time?
Are you ready to play with some confetti?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's do it. How do you feel?
I feel good. A little sweaty, but otherwise good.
How often do you play in your life?
Not very often. I'm trying to think of what in my life I'd even consider play.
You mentioned that you like struggle with it because,
Yeah.
And I relate to this a lot because my parents were immigrants, and my value was placed on like doing and productivity and like how I did in school. So as an adult, I'm like, oh, my value's in output, and I love a to-do list. I love not only creating to-do lists, but checking it off. That literally best feeling ever. So tell me how like that sort of kind of default mode has created a struggle for you in terms of just kind of integrating more play in your life as an adult.
I saw so much of my value in being a hard worker. And I knew I wouldn't always be the smartest person, the most talented, the prettiest, whatever it was. But I was like, oh, I can work the hardest and like prove myself and like have that make up for it. And that's something that I've taken a lot of pride in and have taken with me into my adulthood. And I feel like really more recently when I was at my 9-to-5 job, getting to that point of being like, oh, I am working hard to feel like a hard worker, and it's not getting me anywhere. It's just getting me burnt out and feeling like I had to just keep proving. And you then end up filling all of that blank space in your life with the hard work, as opposed to like giving yourself that permission to slow down, to play, to do other things that aren't just being a hard worker and output.
Yeah, I find that because even with what I'm doing, like the Confetti Project, which is, it's my own company, it's a calling, it's a massive passion, it fuels me. I have navigated cycles of burnout chronically with it. That line gets so blurred between work and your life. And in the past few years, I'm like, I need to create a life for myself. Like there's no point in putting so much effort into this if it's not for something, right? Or if I don't get to like balance things out. So how do you, it's such a asking a woman like, what's your work-life balance? But how do you like wind down at the end of the day? How do you take micro breaks? Because I can like literally get so hyper-focused that I forget to go outside. Sometimes I forget to pee and I'm like, oh my God, I have to pee. Like it gets to that point. Do you have a slower morning? Like what have you found works for you to integrate more spaciousness in your life?
Something I'm definitely actively working on, and I feel like has really been a thing really in the last month since leaving my job and realizing that I spent the first month in that head down, not really letting myself have fun mode, and now trying to find those pockets of time. So for me, so much of that is going out for a walk. Being outside for me is like such a aspect of that, giving myself that permission to, in the middle of the day, if it's nice out, I feel lucky that my schedule is flexible, so I'm going to go to bring my book outside and read and do something like that. At night, trying to really get back to that ritual of, okay, we're gonna take a shower, we're gonna read, we're gonna like do our slow like evening wind down, as opposed to spending it scrolling or telling myself that I'm working when really I'm just like doing busy work for my business. So it's something I'm still trying to figure out and give myself that permission really to integrate it more into my schedule.
What's your relationship with joy? Because I know that you mentioned that that's something that you feel like is such a core part of you. So how do you embody joy? I personally think that joy is something we have within us like 24/7. It's just like accessing it or connecting to it.
Yeah.
And have you noticed that things help you kind of jumpstart into that kind of joy state?
I'd gone to an event recently with, I think she was a psychologist, and she talked about how so many of us say like our goal is to be happy, when that's kind of this like never-ending quest that is never going to feel very good, when really what we should be focusing on is how can we integrate more joy into our day. And for me, it was definitely this big aha moment, because I was on this pursuit of happiness essentially in quitting my full-time job to go all in on content creation for the goal of being happy, but was experiencing such little joy and such little of those moments. So I think for me, tapping into it is listening to music, connecting with people, and like getting out of my head, out of my own space, and just like that hole that I feel like those of us that work on our own business can definitely get trapped in. Journaling and a lot of like brain dumping stuff out just to like get the gunk out of my brain so I can focus on the other stuff. And really just listening to, okay, what actually brings me joy right now? Does this feel good? Does this feel energizing? Does this get me excited? And when I get those little like inklings of like, yeah, I think this thing does, like how can I follow that more and go after that more?
You talk a lot about anxiety. So tell me more. I also have struggled with anxiety. How does it express itself for you? How does it actually work in your favor, which I think is a weird kind of question to ask when it comes to something that kind of like culturally is seen as just a negative thing. And how do you just like navigate it? And yeah, what does it tell you about yourself?
I think I'm someone who is always on the more anxious side, but then maybe about 2 years ago, it really started getting more in the way of my life, that it felt like when I was trying to do anything that wasn't within my typical routine of like wake up, work out, and then work from home all day, my body would just get freaked out and I would get the worst nausea ever. And I'm someone who already like has a phobia of vomit, so it's just like this vicious cycle of like, well, am I anxious because I feel sick, or am I sick because I'm and it got to a point that I made my life really small because I didn't want to feel that, and I didn't want my anxiety to ruin anything. I didn't want to be sick in some sort of situation, and I really limited myself for a solid 6 months, year of what I should do. And then eventually worked on the tools to help me with that, went on medication. I feel like slowly started to get my life back. And while it's not 100%, never ever feeling anxiety, because anxiety, as you said, like it can be this useful thing, feeling like I can live my life again and do those things that I want to do and not just be in my simple routine and schedule. As far as where it's that superpower, I think a big thing I learned was anxiety and excitement live in a very similar place. And I think for me, the wires were a little bit crossed of I couldn't tell the difference between the two. And I think now that I have a more regulated baseline, really, I'm able to experience that excitement again. And I think for me, I was just even thinking today of like, it's a really powerful tool to realize how far you've come when you've experienced any of those sort of limiting things, and being able to look back and be like, oh, this thing that now feels so easy to do, to say yes to, there was a point in my life where it would have been a big deal. And I think that's also an interesting superpower of it. And I've had like a lot of thought of like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about my anxiety during this moment or this experience. So I think that has been really powerful on the flip side of it.
So I'm curious, like when you are navigating hard things, like how does your anxiety show up? How do you move through moments of turbulence or density or like feeling stuck?
Something that I've definitely done in the past is like literally set a timer, and like for those 15 minutes, I'm allowed to have all my worries and like have my freak out about it all. And then at the end of the 15 minutes, it's like, nope, we're no longer thinking about that, and like moving on from it. And that can feel really helpful as far as just like letting yourself feel those feelings. And even if the fear itself is not valid and a lot of like unknown, it's still valid that you're feeling that thing. So I think for me, it's finding those little things, breath exercises, simple stuff like putting my wrist under cold water if I feel myself starting to like get to that anxious place when I'm out in public somewhere, of just like having those little things to go back to of like, you are safe, you're fine, your body's just like experiencing something a little bit weird right now, but like we can get back to that more settled place.
The body is such a portal, and I think a lot of the thing with like confetti is like it is so sense activating that it kind of like overrides like the more cerebral, even if it's for like a split second. You know what I mean? Like it gives you a break from yourself for one moment. If your like inner child or like a younger version of yourself could say something to you now, what would they say?
I think keep performing and keep singing loudly, even if other people tell you otherwise.
So the very last thing we're gonna do, this is like kind of a tradition, is we're gonna do the final confetti throw. You ready?
Yeah.
Ready, set, go. you so much for tuning in. New episodes every Wednesday. And yeah, welcome to your new favorite playdate.